VCE is often a tricky time for children. If they have that connection between each other and the staff, that's only going to help to support them.
Welcome everybody to Innovation High. Today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Victoria Triantafyllou, who is the Vice Principal here at Richmond High School. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So your students fondly call you Miss T,
They do.
I understand?
Yeah, they do. It's much easier than rolling the long Greek surname off the tongue.
Fantastic. And it'd be great to know a little bit about your background. So what brought you to Richmond High in the first instance? What was the inspiration to come here?
I guess my inspiration was around the idea of a brand new school and the progressive nature of starting fresh, to be able to create a curriculum that is your dream curriculum, something that you always envisage as a teacher, I guess. Imagine if we could. And here it's not that, it's let's try whatever it is.
Yeah, which is a really unique opportunity. And I guess as a parent myself, I think about high school curriculums, and I mean, you've got all your subjects, you know, your English, your maths, your science. How do you look at the curriculum and looking at taking it from starting with year 7, then onboarding each year towards that ultimate year 12 graduation? How do you structure a curriculum to fit those needs of those students?
Yeah, I think that it's a really good question, because we could have tried so many different models, because we obviously started with nothing. So the concept that we have come up with that is so far working really well is we have a year 7 and 8 program that's about consolidating learning. So for students who are really high achieving students, it's about challenging them and making sure that they are resilient in their learning and we're developing their learner confidence. And then for the students who need a little bit more time to improve their learning and to get to kind of at level or closer to at level, it's given them the time to pursue and persist and work hard at their learning. So we have that improvement. And it's leading to a year 9 program that for us is a little more contemporary and progressive. So it's integrating subjects. So for example, in term 3, in our subject that's a sort of English humanities subject, we will look at freedom rights of people. I might choose to then specifically look at the freedom rights of women, or the freedom rights of our First Nations people, or of African Americans, or whatever it might be. So we have choice in terms of our learning at that deeper level. So instead of this broad, you'll learn little bits of everything, children will be able to choose their topic that they really want to, I guess, delve into and run their project learning around. In terms of the entrepreneurial part of this sits outside of the classes that happen in a school, and they'll be in groups where all of their homework, they'll have no class homework, all of their homework will be this project. And the project might be to make dog treats and sell them at the Gladell Street Market.
And then they get all those business management skills and time management all kind of layered on top. Yeah, so that's a really interesting thing to do at that age, isn't it?
And I think working with really successful members of our community is going to help with that as well, because as a teacher we can sit and tell them what we think, but actually we're not successful small business owners, but we have some amazing ones in this Richmond area who are really excited to help.
Yeah, and can get on board with mentoring. And so then how would that transition then from that pretty amazing year 9 then go into that more back to serious study year 10? How do you imagine that's going to...
Yeah, what we're hoping in terms of the year 9 program is, yes, it's contemporary and yes, it's exciting, but there is still some really deep learning that's happening. So we will have our NAPLAN results that come in, we will have our own data that we collect, and we expect that our children are gaining the equivalent in terms of 12 months of learning. That is really important to us. We do not want to lose, obviously, that growth in their learning. We will continue to measure that to make sure that if, for whatever reason, children aren't, that we can alter our practice and their practices as well to make sure that they are learning and improving. The second part to that is we would really hope at the end of year 9 that we've been able to create an even tighter community in terms of those students. Our foundation students are particularly special to us and have been able to create that themselves, I think. But at the end of year 9, in terms of this project-based work where they are working together, they are collaborating, that they are able to create a bond between them that they can use in terms of their VCE to kind of, I guess, develop their resilience and get through. VCE is often a tricky time for children. If they have that connection between each other and the staff, that's only going to help to support them. we won't run a kind of normal Year 10 program. The kids will enter straight into Unit 1, 2, and they'll have 3 years to complete their VCE.
We did hear Colin say he was getting
Yeah.
rid of Year 10, which
Yeah.
is a very bold kind of a
But exciting for educators,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
for so long you'd sit in schools and you think, actually, what is the purpose of Year 10?
Yeah.
Because they're all biting at the bit to get to VCE.
Yeah.
Some of them will be studying Unit 1, 2 subjects while still doing the Year 10 version of that subject, and the lineage just doesn't make sense to us. So
Yeah.
we think it's a really amazing opportunity for our children to ensure that they can excel through those VCE subjects.
Yeah.
And then for students who aren't sure, or who've for whatever reason been unsuccessful in a subject, or realise this is not for me, I don't love Unit 1, 2 biology, whatever it might be, it gives them time to have another go at another subject.
Yeah.
For the other type of student who will fly through, it gives them time at the end to pick up tertiary subjects. So they can start dipping into higher education and making that connection to the university life a little smoother when they do transition across.
Yeah.
Both instances will only boost their ATAR score, which is not only what we're about, but it absolutely is an important factor.
And then as far as the actual subjects that the school will be able to offer, because it's, even when it's at capacity, it's still a relatively
Yeah.
small school. How will you diversify that subject offering? How does that work?
It's the big question, isn't it? And what's really exciting about being at Richmond High School is that everything is draft. So we have absolutely some really, ideas that we think will come to fruition in terms of combining with Paran High School, our neighbours who are also brand new.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
kind of makes sense to us that if we're offering specialist maths and one of their students need it, their student will be able to come here.
That's a really interesting way to do it, isn't it? So the
Yeah.
schools aren't siloed, they're much more in partnership, which is great for the kids too, because they get to know kids from other areas.
Yeah.
And will that sort of cross over into, I guess, sports and those things as well?
And camps, I hope. So
Yeah.
I'm at the moment organising Year 9 camps, and I was chatting to them on Friday about let's combine some of these pop-up
Yeah.
camps. So
Yeah.
when we go overseas, let's have a Richmond High School Paran tour.
It's going to be overseas.
Yeah,
Oh,
I hope so.
I hadn't heard about that. Tell me a
see.
bit more.
Well, with our Year 9 program, which I think I spoke a little bit before about being this progressive, engaging program,
Yeah.
there'll be our cohort camp, which is about developing resilience and taking risks.
Yeah.
And then there'll be pop-up camps. So I'm hoping there'll be one that perhaps goes to Cambodia that's about volunteer work in their
Wow.
communities and
Yeah.
understanding what different communities are like.
And it's quite an interesting challenge, I guess, because there's all these, this is a very new learning environment that's been designed for Richmond High, and I guess you've only been in here a few months, so you're still finding your feet and how to make best use of the space. As you bring in new teachers, how do you keep them abreast of learning techniques and how to use a new space like the one we're in now, which is very different to what I had at school?
Absolutely.
How do you sort of take the teachers on that journey as well?
There's a few parts to that. I guess when we very first started, we sat down with the leadership at Albert Park
Yeah.
College, because they are obviously quite a bit further down the track, but they've experienced 8 years ago, they were in the same spot as us, brand new school. So I guess the first bit of research we did was asking them, what do we expect at third year, at fourth year, when we continue to get new teachers in, because we are growing really quickly, obviously, because we have to as we get a new cohort in every year. The second part of that is this idea of a leadership school. So we are developing the capacity of our staff to run programs and to lead staff. So it means when our third year teachers come in, our first and second year staff have the capacity to demonstrate the work that we've been doing.
Yeah.
Because it can't just be up to leadership to be able to do that. So we can lead them, but the staff are doing lots of amazing work. So by having them lead the new staff, it creates a nice world of collaboration between them. But also it's developing their skills in their leadership journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Colin really values this idea of Richmond High School being kind of a leadership factory.
Yes.
So it obviously plays really well into that idea as well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And I think one question that's kind of been on when we're sort of talking with other parents in the area, that's been on the mind of parents, there's this whole private school versus public school is a concern for a lot of parents, and they're concerned that if they send their children to a public school, they're not going to have the same education outcomes as a private school. How would you respond to those kinds of concerns?
I think probably the first thing that we've spoken to with families is that Colin has come from a really amazingly successful government school.
Yeah.
And James and I both have as well, in terms of the success that our schools were able to have. So we understand what it takes for children to be successful and for schools to be able to foster that. I guess that's the first part. The second part is making sure that by knowing our learners, we can really speak to them as to where they need to go and where they need to improve. One thing that's probably been really interesting is we've had a few students, particularly in our Year 8 cohort, come across to us from the private school setting.
That is interesting.
It is, and so just out of my own interest as an educator, I've kind of I like to chat to them about what the differences are. And this is not only these children who are speaking about it, but the children at Richmond High School have said that our teachers are really wonderful and caring, and so part of that is they are able to then create this wonderful community of learning, but the children feel really safe and comfortable to come to school and to take risks in terms of their learning and to have a go at things that might have been tricky in other settings.
Yeah, and that's where that culture really comes into play, isn't it? You know, even just having Colin or yourself out the front every day greeting students and that welcoming environment. So that's clearly has a really strong outcome in learning benefits as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's led from Colin. He's a really wonderful principal and a really warm, lovely human. And I think in terms of the staff, we have then continued to hire people who sort of have that characteristic, which has meant that we've become a really lovely place for students to walk through the door, and they are happy to come to school every day, which was part of our goals.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's been fantastic to hear more about the school as it progresses, and we'll look forward to talking to you again probably in a few months and see, you know, how things are changing and evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.